Alright, so I'm doing the timing belt on my Holden Astra. It's an AH model, and I'm having a look and I'm just trying to see here with everything how it's meant to go. I just noticed, and I have to check if this is normal. This looks like it's cast, but this has got two cuts on two ends. I don't know why that is, but that's for that gear and that's for the other one. What I did to get to this point, I removed the airbox from this filter, which is by my main screw here. You don't have to undo all these little bolts, which I did, and there's 5 of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Just have to remove the main bolt here, and once you've disconnected the air intake and taken it off the airflow sensor as well, and you can just lift the box straight out. I also decided to take the spark plugs out so I can actually turn the engine over by hand a bit easier. I'll just put paper there temporarily. To take it off, you first have to take the engine cover off. You need to undo the oil filter cap, and this is won't go on because the cap's there, but there's 2 holes, one here, and they correspond to these 2 screws here, 1 and 2. The next part is the actual ignition coil. Now this car, like many modern cars, has a complete ignition coil unit. Doesn't have a distributor, so there's 5 screws. Should be 5. 1. I can't see it that well, the paper. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. You need to unscrew them. Most of the bolts and nuts in the Holden Astra, could be in European, is Torx. So you need a Torx kit with T pieces, T bolts. That'll come out, and then once you've done that, there was just an ant there for some reason. You can take the spark plugs out. I'll put paper just so nothing gets in like that little ant. Alright, the next thing you have to do is take off the top cover before you jack the car up. And I've seen this from other videos which have helped a lot. If you don't take it off here, it just makes things harder. So to take the top cover off, there's 3 bolts. 1 here. Again, they're Torx, I think they're T30s, but you'll have to get a set if you can to check. And then here at the bottom. And once you've done that, you then just unclip it. There's 2 little clip parts in this bracket. There's 1 here, and then there's 1 on the other side, which is just where my finger is. And they correspond to this cover. And on this cover, it sits pretty much like this. A little better, of course. And that's the bracket for clipping there. And then you've got the other one on the other side, which is this one. Just a little bit out of focus, I know. And then pretty much you can get that. To get the next part off, I have to take off the engine mount, and I have to take off the serpentine belt or the accessories belt. It's just one belt that does the air conditioning and alternator. Alright, so I had a break. I did some other things yesterday, mainly making hopefully the camshaft locker tool that I'll be using, but I'll just show you sort of what I finished up on. This is the inner guard, mud flap guards. So you have one that goes up here, and then as well joints like this one, if you can see. it sort of has two pieces, because there's covers the inner guard and then as well attaches and goes underneath. So I took them off yesterday. I'm missing some screws, but these type of screws, and you can see as well there, which are Torx ones. If you do lose some, you can get them quite easily. There's also plug holes. There's one up here, which is just a grommet with obviously a little plastic locking pin, and you just push that out. But the easiest way to do that is do it from in the engine bay, which is this here. So to push it down, don't push it up. I've done it before the other way and it's really hard to get it back. Right, so I'm going to try and break the bolt loose, not of the engine mount at the start, but actually of the crankshaft bolt with the big cheater bar, and hopefully mount it either on a piece of wood or on the chassis, and I'm hoping this sucker will break. Fingers crossed on that one. Anyway, so that's my next step. Alright, so I'm going to give this method a go. I haven't done it before. In fact, I've never changed a timing belt before. So it's new, although I'm lucky that there's a lot of resources out there in the information age. So I've got this cheater bar. It's this galvanized steel you can buy from any hardware shop. I've just chopped it up with an angle grinder in different lengths. It's really handy to have these things because you just slide them on your tools. So this one hopefully will work. It's 2 meters and it's just mounted to a wooden block to stop it from turning. Let's give it a go. Hopefully I'll crack this nut off. Fingers crossed. Well, I just cracked it open twice and you can see you can turn it pretty much. Yeah, so it's all be off, which is fantastic. But yeah, nice and loose. Alright, so in order to do the belt you have to take the harmonic balancer off. This piece of equipment right here. It has a space in it, and that's key fitting. You can't put this in incorrectly. It'll only fit one way once it's back on, and then we'll secure it in place. Now I'm having a look. I can see there's bits and pieces of steel or rubber. I don't know, so it's not the best. But to do it right, you have to screw this back in place to continue with the timing belt. If you don't screw it in place, the sprocket can come off, then you end up having a bit of a disaster with your job. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to screw it back in. Now I'm going to then jack it up, remove the engine stand on the right hand side, and then remove the cover, and then hopefully I can disengage the tensioner and get the water pump out. Alright, so I lined it up at the crankshaft a little while ago, but this is a bit after, but even so the timing marks you can see are way off. They didn't align and they were even sort of like this, which means somehow it slipped, and the timing mark on the crankshaft sprocket didn't line up with the timing mark either, as it should exactly. It was very close but not quite. So I'm going to have to line these up again properly and make sure, as have been done in other videos as well, that I do it pretty much across from here to here. So I'll try to do that, and we'll keep going. In order to do this, we need to get rid of the upper engine mount. You can see I've got ants unfortunately all over the place at the moment because it's really hot, but there's one here. They're all Torx pieces. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They should all be an 11 mil size. One thing to note is when you get these off, which I'm doing right now, they have specific washers to them and they join only in these 3 holes here. As you compare the other ones, quite different size. So these 3 are to mount to the chassis, these 3 are mounting obviously to the engine block. Alright, so I thought I'd film the cover so you get a good idea. I've just marked it up, but when you take it off it'll be fairly obvious. So in the engine, facing the driver's side wheel, it is like that. The reason I'm filming it is there is only one little Torx bit just here. It's a 6mm socket that you need, and then it has clips. You just have to bend the plastic at the back. It's out of focus there. And then it should come off. There's one there, another one at the bottom, another one on the left side, and another one at the top. So there's 3 on the left side, and then there's one on the bottom right side. Just for reference, so if it feels like it's not coming off after you undo that first nut, or I should say bolt, don't worry, you still got it, then those clips. Once you do that, you can wiggle it out and then you're free. Now, when I did that, the reason I'm changing is my water pump went. It hadn't been replaced. This car's done 170,000 Ks, and we were driving for 8 hours with 2 stops, so 40 degrees. We got near home, we just heard this massive grinding. So you can have a look. Water just spit it out everywhere, and it leaked all over the place. I'm hoping it's not too bad, but my water pump's obviously gone, and because water's leaked over everything, the timing belt's stuffed as well with all the other stuff, so I have to do all of it. This is what happens sometimes when people skip a little bit maintenance, but the pump did well to last 170,000 Ks, the original pump, OEM anyway. So I'll replace it with another one from Holden, and yeah, we'll get this sorted out. So I've got an Allen key here. I don't know what size it is, but it's pretty large in this set that I managed to find around the house. But you see, if you can have a look, as you tighten or clockwise, it moves to tighten the belt, and as you go anti-clockwise, actually correct that, sorry, anti-clockwise puts more pressure on that I can see, and clockwise is taking pressure away. And then you just adjust that and basically then take it off. That's what I'll be doing. Yep. Alright, so I realised in order to get the, which it does state in the manual, the timing belt off, you've got to take the camshaft sensor here off as well. I didn't really want to do this because this is more a crucial thing for the engine of fire. I can't see exactly where it slots, but where it unbolts. It's one, let me see, one just here where my finger is, and the other one's really well hidden. It's right underneath. I'm gonna see if I can give you it. It's right here under the wheel. You got to undo both of those. They are these type of bolts. I undid them with a 6mm. Let me just check. No, I undid them with a quarter socket. But yeah, something that'll go on fine. Use a breaker bar, that will help as well. Then I can just should be able to take it off, but it doesn't seem to want to move. So I'm going to check why, and hopefully I can find a different solution for this. But I just undid it and it just pops out. You can see there it's a bit deeper, so that's why it was a bit harder for me to get out. It's just censored just through this, I'm guessing here, and that touches obviously just enough on this camshaft wheel to then work out where it's going. So I don't really want to play with that too much. Get the belt off and I'll put it back on. Alright, next I'm going to do the idler wheels or pulleys, whatever you want to call them. That's just two 8mm sockets you'll need. If you have the T-piece sockets, that'll work, but I don't have them. The 8mm fits on pretty tight, so I think that should be okay. I'll just check as well that this is also 8mm. Yep. A little loose on that one. Actually, that may be 7, which is strange, but this one is definitely 8. Yeah, so possibly that's 8 and that's 7. I'll confirm and tape again. The good news is I loosened this off. I'll continue on. Hard part was the clearance. Because I've got the mount here, or the mounting bracket, and it's close to the chassis, you need a breaker bar to do it, but the breaker bar obviously is not enough, so I had my shortest cheater bar and sort of wedged it against the chassis here, and it worked, but cut my finger in the process. Anyway, that's a part of being a mechanic, is cutting your fingers. Alright, so I'll get that off and then I'll look at the water pump, which is just down here and the culprit of all my problems. So as I was saying before, me and my girlfriend were driving from a 3-week trip, and it was 40 degrees for the majority of the day. We had the aircon running, doing freeway speeds. The car was doing fine, no issues. Then about 2 minutes from her home, started hearing some grinding noises. And just to look at the pump now, you see the free play, it's totally shot. So we'll get that out and then hopefully I can focus on getting it back together and getting the parts. Alright, so here's a water pump. In order to remove that, there's 3 bolts. There's one here. Now there's your bolt, and usually the tensioner sits there. So that's the first one. Second one is all the way up here. Sorry, taking a bit of time to focus. That's number 2. The third one, you can't really see it. I'm hoping able to get a bit of light, but it's right where my finger is, right at the back. That's the third one. You've got to get all 3 of them out to get the water pump out. So we're going to do that now. Alright, so these are the 3 bolts for the water pump. Unfortunately the camera has a bit of trouble with its autofocus, but you can see it was a 5mm piece, hexagonal, and yeah, it worked a charm. So I'll now pull out the water pump, which is just right here, and it is GM on it, so it's the original pump. So this pump is going to come out really easily, and you make sure you have your bucket, because it's going to drip everywhere, and that's what's happening right now. I'm guessing partly is because it's shot, or at least the bearings, is why it's not stuck, but I'll take this out now. And there won't be much come out because this car had a massive water pump leak, like I explained before, so Really, I want to try and just see if there's a lot of crap inside and then go from there. Alright, so there's some good news. I got the pump out. It could be bad news. When I turned it over, the pump is basically completely broken off. And I'll just show you inside and you'll be able to see as well. You can hear as well the bearings have been completely shot. So I'm hoping that I can get a lot of it out. Not going to create too many problems. But if somehow it got sucked in, the pressure of the pump goes outwards. So I'm thinking possibly not, but I'm in a bit of trouble because there's not meant to be anything in it. So you can see here, have a look. There's a crap load of stuff inside. So I'm gonna have to try and see how much there is and then clean it out the best I can and just hope hasn't sucked it into the block. So this is what happens when you don't replace your pump. The impeller is just hard plastic, and because of the heat it just basically over time hardens just to the point where it crumbles. So I managed to get this much out, and my worry is that it's only about 3/4, which means there's still a quarter inside, and if it's gone into the engine block, that's some serious problems at the moment. What happens when you get a cool southerly change come through? The temperature must have dropped about 15 degrees. Alright, so I'm doing work again. I haven't had all the parts unfortunately delivered on the time that I would have liked, which is a bit of a shame, but I just thought I'd film this. I've taken the sprocket for the crankshaft off. It just slides off, and you just can understand it's pretty easy in terms of working out which way to put it. Here's the slot key. You can't mistake where you're meant to have it, and obviously the outside is where the arrow is. That's got to be facing towards the ground if you've aligned the camshaft with the marker. And the marker is on the case. I'll just zoom in if I can. So I've marked it in white, but it's just there. So it gives you an idea of where it should be. And obviously behind there you have the crankshaft front main seal. Mine looks to be in good condition. I don't really have any oil leaks from it, so I'll probably just keep it. Although it's done 170,000 Ks, it's better left untouched at times rather than try to get it out, which I could, and then hammer it round. I just thought, no, I'll just leave it in there. So it should last me at least for a bit more time. It'd be easier for me to get off the seal if I need to next time. So I'm going to try and clean this whole area up because it's got a lot of grease, and I'm going to see if I can use something like brake cleaner, brake disc clutch cleaner. Well, not clutch cleaner, but definitely for your brake disc, and then give it a wipe and a cloth and then wipe around the areas, because all the coolant sort of leaked as well, especially around even the crankshaft sprockets. So I'll do that, and yeah, still waiting for my timing belt kit. Should come hopefully by the end of next week, so I've got another week left. I'm going to explain how to do an easy test for a thermostat. For the Astra, the thermostat comes as one unit in the housing. You can't separate this. On older cars, the thermostat sort of sat inside the housing and you could replace the thermostat. Why? I guess you have to pay a bit more, but maybe not a lot. But yeah, that's how it is on the Holden Astra or the Opel or Vauxhall Astra. So one test you can do, which is really easy to do, it's going to be hard for me because I have to pour and hold it at the same time. Maybe I can show you by turning on a tap. So if I run the tap like this, it's cold. It's a cold water garden hose tap. It's not a hot day. And I fill it up. If your thermostat is, I'll shut this off. If your thermostat is working properly, No water should get in at that temperature. Well, very, very small amount. And you can see it's right up to the edge. Virtually it means the thermostat hasn't opened yet because it's not hot enough. Not like it will be when I do my next thing. And for this, I'm going to need to mount my camera and with the tripod. So just hold on. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I've got this lined up, and here's a bucket with the thermostat. Now it's really hot, so I've got to hold it with some pliers. But I'm going to use this hot water, and if it works, my thermostat works, the hot water should flow soon enough down and through the housing. So let's give it a go. The hot water's a bit cold. I wouldn't say cold, but it's been outside for about 4 or 5 minutes, so we'll see if it's warm enough still. So there it is there. It should open up at some point and start to flow down. Yep. I don't know, you can see it's starting to do that now. It probably needs to be a little bit hotter, to be honest. It's a bit slow, but it's coming through. So I know straight away that the thermostat's working. And if you get the chance, you can use a stove, like I said maybe before, but if you don't have a chance, this is the best way. Boil a kettle and pretty much pour the hot water. You should start to see it slowly come through. It's cooled off a bit, but it's definitely opened up though. So there you have it, that's how you can test your thermostat. Now the thermostat, as you can see, is quite brisk with just residue, coolant residue that's come around the end. A little bit here, but not really on the mating surface. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clean it up with some sandpaper, and I'm going to do this as well with the parts of the engine, including the timing cover area. So I've got some sandpaper here. If you're going to do this, you don't want to really use coarse paper. I'd want to grade probably 800. If you go to 1200, it'll be, I think, not enough grit. You don't want too coarse. I wouldn't go any lower than 600, which I've got a sheet here as well. I got this at Bunnings for $1. So you can buy them in packs, but I don't need all the packs. So yeah, we'll do that now, and hopefully we'll get a chance to continue. You can see that that's the pieces of sandpaper I've used, and it's much better. You don't want to take off a lot because I think it takes off a bit of the paint, to be honest, but the calcification's enough that you want to definitely clean it. So you can at least slide the hose on easily, and that's done. Then next, just want to get a very, very light amount of residue off. Virtually not much at all, but just a little bit, so then I can put the gasket back on the gasket maker. Where there's been water, there's been calcification as well. I don't know if you can see that well, unfortunately it's blurry. Try to do that's better. So you need to clean that as well, same deal with the sandpaper. You don't need a lot, just to get the thread a bit nicer. And try not to take too much paint off. So I just took the lower radiator hose off. These are factory hose clamps. How they go on is they're pushed in by these two ends to where my fingers are, and then once they're on the hose, they let go and they sort of go to this position and they stay there. Now I'm guessing this car's never had before a flush, because normally you chuck these, they're just too fiddly to put on the hoses, and you grab some hose clamps with hexagonal bolts with Phillips screw indexations, or just a normal screwdriver, and put them on. Real pain to get off. I managed to get the hose off, which is just here, and that actually fits on. I don't know if you can see where my hand is, just in there. So I'm going to leave this on so I can then actually flush the car. It's pretty much there. All I need to do is insert the old water pump, because that'll at least block the water, and it'll be able to flow around the engine from here all the way through the back and then come out. Hopefully I get some plastic pieces. I've got most out, but I think there's only a few little very small ones. I realised that in order to flush out the water system, you really need a new pump in there, because the new pump has a seal obviously with it, and the seal's brand new, it's not going to leak. And I haven't had any leaks of water, which is great. But if you have an old pump that has leaked, you won't really get a good flush, because the water will leak out into here and will actually leak onto the cover. So if you're going to do call it flush, it wouldn't be the best if your pump wasn't in good condition, because it's going to leak behind the timing chain cover area, which will eventually drop out, but still it won't be that good. So anyway, that worked well. One thing I noticed is if I grab the torch, I was having trouble putting the pump on, and I realised, and I'll confirm, that there's a slot here with the tensioner, and that actually allows you to slide that on, and once you do, you can then do the bolts. One you can see just there underneath this big star, and the second one you can't really see, but it's sort of I'm going to be able to do it from here. That didn't look promising. There's one under there. Get in focus. Then there's a third. As I said before, it's hard to see from this angle, but it's sort of towards the back here. Anyway, but I'll take that out. And how you do the flush, you have to grab your hose and put it in the, both will work, but put it in the top hole, which is just here. Hold the hose, and then obviously have a drainage bucket. And grab your radiator, the lower radiator hose, and grab a container and put it underneath. If you try it the other way around, two problems. One is gravity. It's not really going to flush well. And number two is it's going to be a real pain getting the water back up into here. So you're going to do the flush from the top radiator hose downwards. A bit of common sense, but just for those people that may not know. Right, I thought I'd film this. So I'm starting to put the car back together because I've got the parts and the timing belt kit. And a bit of hassle with that one. Saw something on eBay, said guaranteed delivery. They sent it on the guaranteed delivery date, and I got it like way beyond what it should have. So I had to then buy another part and return the one because it's just not good enough. And yeah, I've got that, so I'm starting to put it back today. And one thing I've done is I've taken the battery out because I want to change these hose clamps. If I have a problem, I'm driving, I'd probably still have to take a mechanic, but if I could and I had the hose, I could be replacing it with the basic tool set of sockets. These things are a real pain in the backside. One thing that I've done is I've actually worked out a little trick. You can see here that I bent it up. If you bend it up, it shortens the distance between each end. Then you can get a pair of vice grips or multi-grips and put them on, and you'll be able to easily get the leverage to spin it off. If not, it makes it really, really difficult because a standard pair of pliers won't get the range in width. So, alright, so I managed to get the hose off, although this here ended up down here and it's got a flanged end, so it actually can become quite stuck. So I bent it using the pliers, and then the multi-grips, the vice grips were too big and I couldn't get the reach. I just needed to use the vice grips with a bit of downward motion with my other hand to slowly move the ring further down to that part there. Alright, so I'm going to be replacing the factory hose clamp, this one here. I understand why manufacturers use it. It makes it quick to bolt up a car, but it's a real pain just with one of these ones. Very standard. Great thing is it has a hexagonal screw or bolt, and you can easily, with a basic set, do it up really quick and take it off quick. So I'm replacing all of them even though I don't have to. Only replacing one hose, it's just easy and it's just for peace of mind. Alright, so this is the kit that I got. Dayco is one of the timing belt manufacturers, aftermarket ones. The model number is this one, and inside comes with some instructions for the tensioner, including which way to fasten with the Allen key, and then just making sure that they line up with the type of belt. Obviously if it's new, it's got to line up with the new belt mark. There's your timing belt. Because it's new, it's going to be tight. From other videos I've seen, it's a little bit trickier to fit on than take off. You get your, if you need them, I'm not going to change the oil seals. It looks a bit of a big deal, and mine's not leaking, so I'm okay for now, but they give you a whole kit of these. I'll keep them for later. There's your tensioner with its screw. You see? They also give you this additional, which is one of the T-Torx bits that's common when you change the tensioner, but I don't know what it's actually for. It wasn't marked, it was just loose. That's your big tensioner, just here. That might be to do that up, I'm guessing. My one didn't have it like this, but I'll double check on that actually. It wouldn't be to do it up. Of course, it'd just be a normal Torx bit. And then you have the small one that comes in this box. I'll just open it up. And that's it there, and I'm guessing that's the bolt for it, but I don't know why they don't put it in the box. That's really strange. Okay, anyway, so there are your two. Alright, so we're going to start putting these on now. The big one first, and then the small one. Alright, so I've managed to do both hose clamps here, and I don't know if you can see it. Unfortunately, the angle's not the best. I've done one down there as well, the hose. Now I'm up to here. to get this pulley on, and I've had to use the one that was there before because the one from Dayco on this side, the big idler, it unfortunately it just felt loose. I don't know why. The design was different, so I've kept this one, which I think is an original but has no bearing noise, which is good. I've replaced though this one from the kit because the one that I had was making noise, so that should be all good. I had to take off the engine mount again because you need access to this side obviously, so I'll leave it off now. I've got it jacked up. Don't know if you can see, just underneath, just a piece of wood on a jack. It's fine, it doesn't dent anything, and you can just hold it there. So now my job is to get the tensioner on and line up the camshafts and put the belt on. Alright, so one thing I've done is I made these little slots for the gears, and my idea was different, that I'd have two in the camshaft teeth. Gear wheels, but instead what I've done, that didn't work, so I put the engine mount back on, and I had a screw with some nuts and washers, and the pressure, the downforce pressure of the inlet shaft is enough that it will hold it in place, and the exhaust shaft is fine, I can turn that, but the inlet one springs back, so hopefully this works. But the notches line up so far, so it's a good sign. So I managed to get it lined up, but the only problem I'm having is because the belt is not stretched, it's actually quite tight to get on, and I've got the tensioner there, I just have to tighten it up. But yeah, it's not easy actually getting the belt on. That's the one thing that I need to try and figure out. So we're gonna hopefully get it on. This is a diagram. Very basic one, but you get the idea. And if you're doing the serpentine, which you probably will, that's this diagram here. Alright, so I'm back at my car again the next day. Didn't get a chance to finish what I did. I want to give one tip. This is why the engine mount's back on. I'll have to take it off later. But with the tensioner here, one issue that I had, which for beginners, people that haven't done it before, you need to really focus, is to have it flush. If you put it in the square tab holder, which is a part of this mechanism here, and I can show you what I mean. This is my old tensioner, but if you see, focuses, it has a square tab here that sort of sits at the back on the block, and in order to get that in, sometimes this can be angled slightly, and you may think that it's actually flat, but it's not. So you've got to really make sure it's in, otherwise what may happen, which I'm hoping I'll have it done, is you may kill the thread. There's two ways, and you can fix that. You can re-thread it, or you can go very slowly and screw up the bolt. I'm going to go for the latter and see how it goes. Hopefully it'll be fine, but it's actually a lot trickier than I thought. There has to be no gap in this part here between the block and the tensioner itself. Just make sure that the tensioner is flush. Alright, so luckily it all went in pretty flush, as you can see. It should look something like that. I still have to do the tension, but I'll just film something as well, which I've just realized. Is that here, it doesn't actually have to sit right in. You see, there's still a gap. So you don't actually have to have it in the hole, but you have to have it over the hole. So just make sure Don't try and put it in, otherwise you won't get this flush. That'll be a bit of a problem. And make sure you have the tension down at least to 6 or 7 o'clock. It'll make it easier to make it flush when you mount it. Alright, I thought I'd show you the sunlight. I'm outside, so it's not the best view. There's some shadow. The biggest problem is actually getting the timing belt on because it's brand new, it's super tight. You have to pick up the slack initially from the crankshaft there by pressing on the side where the tensioner is, the belt, and the other side, and squeezing your hand a little bit to feed it round, and that'll move it more across. Then the hard part is getting it on each wheel. Now I had a look to see if I had the wrong belt, the wrong manufacturing part. It's all correct, it's just brand new. So one way I'm going to do it is, you got to try and do it at the same time, is slide it on, and I'm going to have to push this belt up just a little bit, just here, and I hope I can get it on, because you see it's actually got some slack there. It needs to be pushed up one more notch, and I just can't get it right now, so I hope that I can do it, fingers crossed. Alright, I got it on, and I just got to push it on now. Finally, one tip is to use two hands. One hand pressing this way, and another hand pressing that way. You're actually going to be pressing it forward but slightly up, just so it can get on. And then once you've done that, you've got the other side, same thing, pressure this way. You should be able to get it both on and then be able to do the tensioner. My timing marks are still good, which I'm really happy about. That hasn't stuffed up, and at the bottom it's perfectly on there, so I'm really in a good mood right now. Alright, so finally done that, which is great. Next thing I'm going to do is just tighten up this tensioner now, just down here with the Allen key, and I should have this bad boy on completely. But you want to make sure obviously that it always matches up with these marks and sits in the teeth properly. If not, it's going to be a problem. That it goes around the water pump properly and bites in, which I can sort of see doing that quite well, and the crankshaft, that it's sitting there properly, which if I have a look, it looks pretty good to me, so should be all set, hopefully. One tip that I'll give is, this is the old tensioner, but I'll use it for example, and just ignore this for a minute. So you can see here you've got your indicators between used and new. You want that marker to cover almost the new as a word. You want that word to be covered, because if you see the shape of the pointer, the majority of that indicator is actually slightly offset on the right. So when this, the sort of the base part of that indicator covers the new word, you know then that you've got the pointer on the marker just there. So I've done that. I'll just show you what it looks like in the car. See, the light's not fantastic. That's it there. It's about 11 o'clock, and I'll just show you from underneath as well. So that's roughly the point 10 or 11 o'clock. That's where you want the tensioner adjustment to be. Right now we're going to make it move around 2 times, check that the belt doesn't slip. Fingers crossed. Alright, one thing that I just remembered to show with the washer, this is a crankshaft pulley washer here. You want to make sure that this side is facing you when you put in the bolts. not this side with the indentation. So you want to make sure this side, and in case you're not sure, you can sort of see line marks, and that's where the bolt bolts into. So this should be facing the right hand hub, or right hand tyre, whatever you want to call it, and the other side should be facing the engine block. Now on most modern cars, thermostats don't have a gasket, they just fit flush. This has a sort of a gasket, but not the typical type that you'd see, just a rubber more over in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get that ant out. I've had an invasion of ants. I'm going to use this stuff here, which is just from Permatex. It's a RTV silicon substance. I don't really need a gasket, but it's just going to make it watertight. So I don't need much on. In fact, they've applied some before because I can see here the blue lining. Just need a little bit, and then pretty much can put this on and be ready for the next step. So to make sure I could get as much of the broken impeller parts from the water pump, I replaced my radiator hose. Now to get access to this, there's a plastic air intake piece which has 3 secure places. They're just plastic slots here, and then you've got 2 more, this one and this one. But you have to take that off to get access to the radiator hose, especially if you're trying to put the hose clamps on. Alright, so we'll get that on, and then the air intake. One thing I thought I'd film is that if you need to get the battery out, there's 3 bolts. One here, and then one right at the back. I'll take this out. One right at the back, just there. So yeah, you've got 3 of those, and then the retaining for the battery itself is just a piece, and that goes here. It's a basic clamp, and then that's your battery tray.